we'd like to start with a poll, and we've been asking this question. We'll be doing several polls during the presentation, and this question we've been asking since the beginning of the pandemic, just to check in and see how people are feeling. So for those of you on WebEx, you should see the polling widget, and we welcome anybody on live stream to comment with their answer. We're just going to give about another 10 or 15 seconds for this. So and I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Get your answers in, please. And well, thankfully, the vast majority of folks today are feeling well. For those of you who are in the third category, we hope that this presentation will be informative and will help brighten your mood a bit. And with that, I am going to introduce Prem. Lieutenant Colonel Prem Voss, retired, the CEO of PreHanJay Ventures. He is a qualified international business and life coach, credentialed by the International Society for Coaching Professionals of Singapore, and he has more than 3 decades of professional career experience in both the Indian Armed Forces and in the corporate world. So we're very pleased to have him here today. And Prem, thank you for joining us. I am going to turn the presentation over to you. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stuart, for that introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to whichever part of the world you are. It's a delight to do this sharing of presentation in which I'm going to share my experience. Great. Looking forward to do this. Okay, let's go straight into the presentation. Can you hear this? Can you see the screen? I hope you can see this.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Fine. So how to sharpen your interview skills as you move up in your career. So this is a very wide subject. Probably will take 3 days if you really want to cover it. But today I'm just going to do it in about 40 to 45 minutes, so less than that. And we will handle those aspects that is specifically when you are going to move up your career. The interview skills there is far different from any other interviews that you normally attend. So we're going to do another poll now. And so we want to know from the audience your profile.
We will do this in 2 parts. The first part are the first 2 questions. And Prem, I think if you click on your presentation, you'll reveal the first 2 questions.
Okay. Yeah, so which country are you attending this session from? So that's the first part of the question. And the next one is, how much experience do you have? So you have 4 options. Just select one out of that, obviously. Less than 2 years, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, and greater than 10 years.
You give yourself one more click to reveal that second question there. All right. Here's the results of the first 2 questions. What country you're joining from is a very long list, and I'll try to take a look at that and share some of that with you. But For experience, we have a fairly experienced audience today. The biggest number is people with more than 10 years experience. Now we can move on to the second two questions. Prem, if you click your slide.
Yeah, we'll go then. Yes, we'll do that. Yeah,
go ahead and do that a couple more times.
Yeah.
There we go.
Approximately.
Yeah. And once more, if you would, please. So these last two questions are now up on your screen. The approximate number of interviews that you've attended and what you feel is the most common reason for failure in an interview. And we will close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the largest number answering the first question have done fewer than 5 interviews, which is interesting compared to the experience levels. And the most common answer among the reasons for failure is an inability to articulate my answers. But the other reasons were also cited. So with that, let's continue the presentation.
Yeah. So we can close the poll. Right. Next up. Okay. So interviews are here to stay. Now, during my dad's time, I remember very distinctly that everybody used to be very proud of going for the golden watch, after 25 years, 30 years, depending number of years that they have put in experience to. So those were those times, and if you really don't need any interviews after that, after you do your first interview. But today the world is far different from what it was in the past at least 10, 15 years. Now you change jobs in your professional lifespan at least 3 to 5 times minimum. And some are even more than that. So it's very rare that you will ever find somebody going for 20, 25 years. It's more of an exception today. So if that be the case, it clearly means that interviews are going to stay. It's going to be part of your life. So therefore, like any other skill that you have, skills like that you learn, the soft skills that you learn, how to do your interviews well so that you get the job that you want is also a skill that you need to be constantly working on, which means you must be having a perpetual master CV with you, in which all this information you constantly keep upgrading, because you never know when you will going to shift into a next job for a better growth opportunity. So it's going to be part of the system, it's going to be a part of your life, it's going to be part of your body, if I may say that. So interviews are going to stay. Therefore, what should we be doing so that we are acing it up in our career? So we'll go for the second audience poll. Over to you, Stuart.
And this poll is, what is the most important factor in selecting a candidate? Hold on for a moment while I activate the poll. In this case, select your top reason. And again, we have about 20 more seconds.
Okay.
And there is a clear favorite answer. Share that with you in a moment.
Well, 60% got it right. Yeah. Perfectly. That is the reason why you need. The rest are all important. There's no doubts about it. But potential to do the job well is what actually clinches the interview. Okay. So what do we have to expect from this session? So I'll quickly take you through that. First is the classification of interviews. Throughout your lifespan, there are predominantly 3 classifications. We'll take a look at that. The importance of perception matching, the perceptions of the candidate and the interviewer. There is a perception that needs to match. What is that? We'll take a look at that. Then obviously the mastering the art of preparation, the secret of excelling in interviews and creating the edge to ensure your visibility. Now I've marked this in blue basically because the complete presentation till the end, these 2 aspects will always be part of every slide. What is the secret and how do you get that edge so that you're visible to the interviewer? When I talk about visibility to the interviewer is once the interviews have gone, you stay in the mind of the interviewer. That is what is meant by that visibility. Next comes the influence today of social media in the interviews. How influential the social media can be in letting you be selected for the job. And finally, how can I help? The question answer sessions just before that, from across the globe, thanks to technology, you can always reach out to me. So we will see how do we do that. Now coming to the classification of interviews. There are 3 predominant classifications, and this is just broad classification. The first one obviously is the entry-level interviews, which is with an experience of 1 to 2 years or no experience. You know, the interns, the freshers, the grads, and the postgrads, they all come into this category. The second is where the junior and the middle-level interviews take place, and that's when the junior is between 3 to 5 years of experience and 5 to 10 years of experience for the middle level, where the middle level managers are. And the final one is the senior level interactions, which is for people who are more than 10 years of experience. And we have about 38% of them who are attending today. That's wonderful, right? And this is the entire interview spectrum that we have. If you noticed, in the senior level, I've mentioned it as interactions and not interviews, because at that level, it is more of an interaction. There's always an exchange of mind, which is happening place vision. So it is a lot more informal. And that's why it's called interactions. Next, we come to what is the need to excel in interviews? Why would you need to have that burning fire in your stomach to excel in interviews? I'll just share some statistics which Glassdoor has shared. The corporate jobs, you know, this is an average, okay? Across the world, the average says that if you get 250 resumes, of which 4 to 6 are likely to be interviewed and 1 is going to get the job. See the ratio? So out of approximately 250, there's just 1 who's going to get the job. Now, this may not hold true for every job that you're applying for, but this is entirely an idea to give you that you have to take every aspect of your interview seriously to make that shot. Now coming to the importance of matching of perceptions. Now this is something which I have personally thought to and brought this into my presentation. Watch very carefully as to why this is the importance of matching of perceptions. There is a candidate and there is an interviewer. Now, between them, the interviewer has a perception of what is the job expectation. Now, most of it would have got translated into your job description. Over and above that, the interviewer, and here when I say interviewer, it also means maybe a panel too. The perception of, apart from the job description, is what is there in the mind of the interviewer as to what kind of a person are they looking for, what kind of a candidate are they looking for. And in the candidate, you have a perception of what can you deliver for that job description that you got, for the position that you are applying for. So you have a perception. When these two perceptions meet, of all the candidates who are there, the one whose maximum match happens is the one who takes the job. So this is the core of understanding why a person gets selected. I just split this into the perception because now you have to do everything that you can to match the perception of the job description and what the interviewers got. How do we get to know that? Is what we are going to see in the rest of this presentation. The first clue obviously is the job description. Now, to steps for winning interviews, broadly speaking, there are 3 steps that you have: the preparation, the interview per se, and closing and follow-up of the interviews. Now, I have a poll just before this, and I want you to pay attention to these 3 steps. What is the most attributable factor? Choose only one option, and here are the options.
Again, if you're on WebEx, you should see the poll widget. If you're watching live streams, you can enter your answer in the comments. And we'll close the poll in about 10 seconds.
Okay.
Apologize to the people who say they're not seeing the poll widget.
Do you want to
No,
put the poll up again?
No, it's fine. It's a fluke of WebEx that sometimes some people won't see it, and I apologize for that.
Okay.
Here are the poll results.
So 61% of you say performance in interview is the most important factor, and 34% of you say that preparation is the most important attributable factor. Right. So this is a myth we are going to break, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay. Let's take a look at the next slide. All the 3 are important. There's no doubts about that. But performance in interviews, definitely, obviously, that's where the whole crux is. But something even more important, okay, and that is the preparation. Okay, to me, in my experience of having countless interviews that I've done across the spectrum, right from the entry level to the junior, middle, and the C-suite, in all of these, 60 to 70% success comes from how you prepare for that interview, right? And you have also mentioned that, lack of confidence. 37% of you said that there is a lack of confidence, and the reasons of failure and inability to articulate. Now, if you do your preparation and what goes into it, that automatically translates into a very enhanced level of performance when you do your interviews. And what are these things that you need to prepare for? So let's take a look at that. See, we must have a master resume or a CV. Resume obviously is for 1 page. Maximum it could go to 2, but predominantly it's 1 page. And the CV, like most of you know, should not exceed more than 2 or 3. As you go up in your career, your resume, master resume, can run to maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 pages. That's just fine. It's okay. And that's why when I said that, you have to keep maintaining your resume throughout your career. Any good things that happens, any achievements you did, please put it on into that resume. So your master resume can run to 5, 6, 7, 8 pages. But there is a JD specific one. Every job that you get, you got to tune this resume or the CV to the job that you are getting. You cannot use the master survey or the master resume or a CV for every job that has come. You can't spray it like a sprinkler on the grass. It doesn't work. You're very lucky if it works. So each job has got to highlight what can you contribute in that from your CV. So the words in the CV or the resume should match the job description. And that's how it gets picked up, because the application tracking system, the ATS, some of the companies use that. They only pick up what are the words that is matching with the JD. So that's very important. Then you must list your strengths and your areas of improvements. Your strengths are something that you're very good at over the years that you picked up. You may be good at maths, you may be good at calculations, you may be good at people handling, you may be good at communication, you may be good at articulation. Put all of that as your strengths. And there is a reason why I'm asking you to do this. And the areas of improvement. All of us are human beings. We have all our failings, shortcomings. So we have to do something to improve that, because as you keep going up in your career, every aspect of your personality needs to have its presence for getting the job done. So therefore, you must know your areas that you need to improve upon. And this comes from the previous experience that you had. And why is this important is the next question. You need to prepare a list of question and answers, both technical and behavioral. Because if your job is technically oriented, you must have your questions based on your strengths and area for improvements for the technical aspect of it and the behavioral aspect of it. A little more on the behavioral aspect, because as an interviewer, in my experience, I found behavioral questions are the ones which actually brings out what is the personality or what is it that drives a candidate. And there is an entire subject by itself. Most of the talent acquisition people know that. Behavioral, BEI, they call it, the behavioral entry interviews. This is event interviews. This is a kind of a subject by itself where if you are a master in it, you will be able to assess your candidates very well. What does the job entail and how you can contribute? The first point that I mentioned about. Everything that the job description gives, what can you contribute to that is what you must prepare in your answers to these technical and the behavioral questions. Then your growth plans, which obviously indicates your enthusiasm. Okay. Now you got to work on your doubts and concerns. This is where that lack of confidence and the inability to articulate. If you have concerns, that obviously pulls you down. So what you need to do is write down honestly to yourself, what are your doubts, what are your concerns? And thereafter, how do you want to address it? How do you want to convert that answering of that doubt or a concern into a positive answer? That's something which is subject by itself, right? That will dilute the negativity. Your lack of confidence, nervousness, it brings it down. This is very important. Have you been to a show where you find an actor? I'm talking about drama. Every actor who has got his lines correct, you are instantly find that appealing. But if somebody forgets a line or something, you know that there is something amiss. Something like that happens when you go for your interviews. If they ask you a question and if you're not very sure of the answer, then it comes out in the way that you answer. So if you do your preparation of list of questions and answers, and if you list out your strengths and areas of improvements, and you sit in front of a mirror, close the door, and rehearse how you would do it. I do it at 58. I sit in front of the mirror. I rehearse this presentation 2-3 times before I do it. It's that important. Okay, so you have to rehearse it, and phenomenally your confidence moves up. Check it out for yourself. And a good night's sleep, and look forward to a very pleasant experience for the next day when you go for the interview. Now, there is something called must-know topic at all levels, the entry level, the junior and the mid-level, and the senior level. And this is pertaining to today. So I want all of you to make sure that you know this. And this is the challenges the pandemic has thrown. You must know what are the challenges that you faced as an individual, your team has faced, the company has faced, and the industry has faced. You must know this inside out. And how do you cope this? What is the mechanism of coping mechanism that you adopted, and how did you resolve it? This is very, very important. And the future assessment of the challenges. What are the challenges, and what is your assessment of these challenges? All these 4 aspects. You as an individual, team, company, and the industry. And finally, this, just before this, you have to know there is a predictability and uncertainty in all you do because of this pandemic. You should make your assessment of what can be predictable for the future and what is uncertain in the future in all these 4 aspects. And how are you going to recommend your resolution for that? This is important at all levels, be it an intern, a graduate, or a mid-level lead, and including the C-suite. This is very, very important. Now we will go specifically what is the must-know basics at each of this level. So let's take the entry level first. Your academic knowledge is aligned to a job description. You must do that. How is it your academic aligned? The second, what are the additional skills that you have picked up during the academic curriculum, which is over and above that? Because of the pandemic, you may have done courses, certifications, that one. Learnings from projects, seminars, symposiums, they're all trending ones. What have you learned out of that? How would you like to contribute to the company from your existing knowledge? Whatever your knowledge, the company knows that you are fresh, you have come from the academy, they know that you may not have an experience. So how can you contribute with that knowledge? Where do you see yourself 2, 3, and 5 years from now? You must have that. Go to an internet, go to the Google it out as to what is your career profile that requires the lifespan of your career. You will get all of that, whether you're an architect, whether you're an engineer, whatever you want to be. Soft skill that you picked up in college to help your career. You may be good at getting funds, you may be good at articulating, good at debates, which means you can, these are qualities that's very good for customer service, marketing, and sales, and things like that. So these are something which you got to highlight. And then you have to highlight what's your contribution to the society environment, because today you are a whole-rounded person. You're just not going to just do your job. So what is part of volunteering have you done? It shows how do you care for the society? How do you care for the planet Earth? And then, of course, your passion, professional and personal, both. Though both are equally important, it tells you a lot about your personality too. Then let's go to the junior and the middle level, the must-know basics. What additional qualifications and certifications you have done apart from your formal academics in this 3 to maybe 5 to 10 years of service? Other than that, you may have done some management development programs from reputed institutes, or you may have done some courses, certifications, whatever it is. You must see and tell them as to how you could apply it. That's more important. How could you apply it? And the technical and work efficiency measures that you adopted as a leader to improve your and your team's efficiency. As an architect, you may be an individual player, but still, what are the measures you have adopted for the efficiency levels? Then your experience from individual contributor to leading a team. That transition is very important. Where from us, when you joined us as an individual person, and then how you went about leading a team. A very challenging and a lot of experience you learn that. If you can share that, you will wow the interviewers. Obviously, that's why I said adequate examples. The value you can bring from your experience to the current job description. This is the clincher. What can you bring as value from your experience to the current job? And examples of achievements, excellence from your journey from the entry level right to your current profile. And your scope of improvement in your areas of somebody might ask you, and how are you handling it, right? So that is very important. Now let's go to the senior level. This is at the C-suite or just below that, people who are more than 10. We've got 38% of them. This is one question where you're likely to be asked a lot in your interactions, your industry perspective and your network competence. At that level, it is more of how much networking are you capable of, because your stakeholders have multiplied, and therefore dealing with them is very important, and networking helps a great deal at this level. What is your experience going to add value to the profile? Unlike a youngster who would have joined, who's purely academics, here it's more and more and more of your experience which is going to add value. Please do share that. And what is your vision to take the business unit or the department to the next level? Here, most of it is vision when you go to the higher levels. Beyond 10 years, it starts here in the brain. And from here, how are you able to convert it into a practical application for your teams, for your department and the business unit? That is the vision that they are looking at. Additional knowledge other than academics and its application over the years. Like what you picked up over the course, certifications and all of that. Now, the experience, and I've marked this as professional storms that you have weathered. Now, this experience of what are the difficulties and challenges that you have gone through these years, That is more important than the X number of years you have put in. If you ask me, if somebody with 10 years of experience have gone through some serious challenges as far as the industry is concerned, than somebody who is 20 years and who've had a very smooth sailing, I would go in for a person who's gone at 10, who's weathered the storms. That because that person knows what it means to face challenges and overcome them. Sharing failure stories and how you bounced back. A lot of people keep telling the good part of their life. They don't talk about where they have failed. If you really ask me, all of us fail sometime or the other. Otherwise, we are lying or we must have dropped from heaven. There is no other reason. If you must have failure stories and how did you bounce back, which is more important. That's why it's highlighted in blue. Your ability to connect across the spectrum, that's from the junior to the highest person in the company, that is a skill. What happens is that as you keep growing up, you have lesser and lesser number of friends. But as you go up and carry, you can't lose touch of your grassroots. So how you're able to connect with that, that's a phenomenal quality that you need to bring at the very senior level. And the ability to influence and inspire leadership only comes if you're able to do that. Your ability to provide leadership to people smarter than you, right? A lot of people are successful, very highly successful are people who have in their teams who are much, much smarter than themselves. Their leadership is how to make maximum potential use of the smartness for the goals, for the objectives, or for the vision of the company. So that is where it matters. So in the art of preparation, another thing which I want you to understand is this: know thy company. Now, this is more not for the higher, not for the senior lot. This is more for the junior lot up to 3 to 5 years of service or even less than that. So when I asked them, okay, do you know what do you know about the company that you've come for an interview for? So have you gone through the website? So they said, yes, we've been to the website. Okay, tell us about the company. And believe me, not more than 3 to 5 sentences can they go about it. No, that's pathetic. You can't be joining a company where you have not done your homework to find out what is the company about, right? Some of the aspects that you can look at it is, the industry standing. Where does your company stand in the industry? This you can get it from the website. Even if it's not even if it's not an updated website, you can still get this information. What are the achievements that the company has got? Who are the competitors? At least 3 to 5 competitors, and where is the company standing vis-a-vis the competitors in the market? Financials, right? What is the market capitalization, the profit levels? How are they earmarked the funds for future growth? What are the R&D levels that they're going? All of that in the news. Some of the companies are in the news for good and bad reasons. It's okay, but you must know what is the reason. And if you have some questions on this, please do ask. And definitely culture. I'm telling this culture separately because this is very important. Today, a misfit in a company can be a serious liability. It can cost the company heavy if they don't pick up the right person who is a culture fit. Okay, we will discuss about this a little later. Now, what are the steps to the winning interview? We come to the interview per se. We just talked about preparation. I spent a lot of time in that because that was important. Now, the interview per se. The impression and the body language. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Today, there are interviewers who feel that making a first impression is not that really important. Okay, because we are more important to see how good you are at what the job that you do. So your first impression doesn't really matter. But out of 100 people, there is a research that has been done in which 43% of the hiring managers, they have made the impression in the first 9 seconds of taking a look at you when you enter that meeting room for your interview. And they've decided subconsciously or consciously that whether you will be the one to make it or not. Now, would you want to take the risk to know whether that interviewer is part of that 40% or the 60% or less than that? So that's a huge risk. So better to be that you carry out the right kind of impression. Nobody's asking you to look like a model when you go for an interview, but a clean bearing, a very confident looking bearing, and being yourself. If you be yourself, your impression is naturally bound to come in your body language. Smart dressing, therefore, its space, it starts and ends with the security gate. I'll tell you why. If you're a people connect person, how you treat the security guard when you went to park your vehicle, how you treat the lobby, how you treat the receptionist, how did you treat that pantry lady who came and gave you a cup of tea or a glass of water, it matters. A pleasant smile, square shoulders, relaxed straight back. Don't stiff like that. That's going to make you hard. But if you have a square shoulders and relaxed straight back, irrespective of whichever level you go, it puts confidence into your voice because your stomach muscles have been pulled in. And therefore, it instills confidence. Small points, but these are phenomenal points that will make you, in decimal points, a better candidate than the others. An enthusiastic greeting of the day, wait to be asked to sit down and unbutton your jacket. If you button your jacket, I've seen a lot of people do this and they look like a toad, that it bellows up like this and it looks and the person is very uncomfortable. You got to be comfortable when you sit down for the interview. So that's why this point I made it now, it's purely from my experience. Let them initiate the conversation. Some people like to use silence to see how uncomfortable you could be, but you should maintain that cool, the patience. Shift your gaze if there are more than one person there, the 2 or 3 panelists. Shift your gaze when you answer your question. And we could start with the person who asked the question, shift the gaze, and then finish with the person who had asked the question. Okay, that's one way of doing it. Now that's for face-to-face. Now we are more and more into smart virtual interviews. Now in this virtual interviews, you would have noticed, or if you've experienced now in the past year plus, that if there is a disruption in the virtual connect, it leads to an irritation. Therefore, invest in a very stable internet connectivity, a good mic, camera, lighting from the front, not from the back, minimum disruptions, as going to the extent of making sure somebody doesn't ring a doorbell or you have somebody to attend to that. Lock your doors, tell people that, you are going to attend an interview so there is less noise, background noise. Then check the background, I don't have to say much about that. Okay, let's not have some funny backgrounds behind. Copy of a resume or a CV you must keep with you just in case you have to clarify something. And your etiquettes on disruption. There could be an ambulance that goes by, or maybe an aircraft is flying by. You need to stop when you speak, when you are responding to a question, and then apologize politely and go ahead. Small things, but very important, all of these. Pre-session checks, something like your pre-flight checks. Very important. Like the password and the ID, you must have it right in front of you, written down somewhere. It's not that just 2 minutes before you open it and then you find that your computer is crashed and you have to restart, things like that. So just start 10-15 minutes before and be ready. You can mute your mic and mute your video, and whenever the interviewer comes, you've got to be present there. That's the right protocol. You have to be present before the interviewer opens up his head. And then thereafter, your interview starts. Whether it's face-to-face interview or an interview on virtual, there is just one shot that must come when you get into the interview, and that is, I can do it. No other thought in your mind. All your faculties, all the 5 senses, your sharpness of your mind, your ability to listen to the questions rightly and answer to the point, all this will come if you confidently say to yourself with an affirmation that I can do it. The T, just remove it. It doesn't belong to you. Now coming to the behavioral questions. So there are so many ways that some of you know that there's a STAR technique of doing it, but this doer technique is something which I have invented myself. So this doer is because you are going to do that interview. So that's why doer is more useful. I'll give you an example of how to answer a behavioral question with this doer technique. Let's say you've been asked to raise funds for a project, right? Or for a volunteering when you were in a college or when you were in the company as a part of your social responsibility, you've been asked to raise some funds, okay? So what is the situation? You must describe that. So you say that the task is to raise funds and the objective is to raise, say, $50 million, or sorry, $50,000 in the next, say, 2 months. So that is something that is an objective that you have. And how did you go about executing it? So you made a list of what are the who are the people who can contribute, and you targeted them the influential persons in your town or the region that you worked, what are the timings that you need to go and do this, and when you need to call on them. And you just didn't go knocking at each door. So you were very methodical. That comes out when you answer. So therefore, how did you execute it? So you can mention that in the E, and what is the results that you got? How much money did you make? 40,000 or 50,000 or 60,000, whatever the results are. So when you use this doer technique, you have to, have you noticed you are very clear about answering this question, and you're answering all aspects of the behavioral questions there. So do a practice of this. Make about 5 to 10 behavioral questions that are likely to be asked based on the JD, and practice your answers. And you'll do extremely well, believe me. Practice telling your story, very important. Now, what do they look for in interviews? This culture fit. I will give you an example, right? The culture fit. See, the culture in a company could be hierarchical. It could be a new generation company. You have to understand, it could be a mix of both. It could be a global company. It could be purely local or purely regional. You got to understand that, look for that. And that's the culture fit that we're talking about. I, for instance, when I came from the armed forces, very disciplined and methodical, precise, process-oriented. But when I joined a company as head of HR, the average age was 27, and I was the only one who was above 50. And believe me, I went to 7 iterations with them, which each of the crowd at each level and below, all of them had said that they wanted me as a head of HR, and that's how I joined them. So adaptability, how can you adapt into the culture? That's very important. If you feel you're not going to make it, don't take the job. 3 things you shouldn't say. There are so many things you shouldn't say, but 3 things you shouldn't say. Don't badmouth, for heaven's sake. How lousy the company was. They pay us poor paymasters. The boss is the lousiest creature walked alive on earth. I mean, don't ever do all of this, because you will do the same thing in the current company, right? And that's a good enough reason to reject you. Don't sound desperate. I'll do anything. For the past 10 months, I don't have a job. Just give me whatever job, whatever salary you want. These kind of things don't work, because the company is looking for you to contribute. And when you tell them what you can contribute, you automatically get picked up for the job. And that is how you earn the money that you want, right? Don't go into the begging bowl. Don't use only adjectives. You already touched upon it in the doer, in the behavioral question. Use a doer technique. Give proof. Don't say, I'm great at people connect. I'm great at getting sales. Give proof of how you got sales. So last is the closing and the follow-up, right? And in this one, ask them if they've got what they want to know. This will give you, this is a question that you must ask. Okay, have you got whatever you would like to know from me? When you ask this question, they will tell you if there are some gray areas. And then you can amplify that area when you're going to then, and that puts you in a better spot, right? What are the next steps? When it's the next interview, what level it is, and how soon can you hear, who are you hearing it from? And definitely say thanks. Some way of saying thanks is either email, or some people use thank you notes, which they leave it at the reception to be delivered to the person who's interviewed you. And thank the staff who hosted you. It goes a great way for people connect that you have. And finally, your interview is not over until you leave the premises, okay? Right, because you're being watched. Make an assessment of the interview when you get back. What went well, what did not? How can I improve going forward? Right? This is very important analysis of that. And call up the person who organized the interview and thank them for the opportunity. In case you didn't make it, request them to share why you could not make it, or what are the areas that you could improve. Now, not all companies share this information, but if they share with you, don't go into an argument with them or try and justify yourself now. Just take that feedback. It's very important. Go back, reflect upon it, and see why did they make that opinion, right? Close with an open shop. Even if they give you something negative, say thank you so much. And if there's in the future, I will work on whatever you have told me, and I would look forward for an open opportunity in the future. Close it with the doors open. Getting depressed, feeling sorry, especially for the younger ones, is not an option. Resolving to improve yourself is the only option that you have when you don't get into the interview that you got. Remember, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Okay, you don't lose, you learn. And so social media is very influential today. A lot of team leaders or leaders, I would like to take a look at their social profile. How are they? So we ask for social profiles. And that's public proof. You're not asking for your personal one, but the public ones. And what I'm going to show you is I'll quickly go through this. What are those ones that has resulted in rejection because of your social media behavior, your social media post? And what's written red is the percentage people who got rejected. Somebody did this survey. Drinking, using drugs, 38%. Discriminating comments, race, gender, religion. Posted too frequently, it means you got a lot of time. Lied about your qualifications, poor communication skills, the language that you've used, that denotes there. Linked to any criminal behavior, something that you are supporting or things like that. And the last three, that is, sharing confidential information, bad mouthing, and lying about your absence. This is for people who have got previous experience. These are the percentages that indicate people have got rejected. I'm sure you may not want to be part of this. So if you have anything of this in your social media, please go ahead and delete it. So therefore, Lance, just reach out to me. This is how I can help. These are my contacts. You could, take a screenshot. You could take a photograph of this. This is my contact. You can reach out to me on my phone. I'm on WhatsApp and on the Telegram. My email, this is my Leadership with VAS, is my website. Please go take a look at that. And I also have a YouTube channel called VAS Vibes, and you can access that too. It's got a lot of career enhancing videos in that. I've just started this just a few months back. Okay. And reach out to my social media handles. Again, take a screenshot of this. I have my own page on the Facebook of Leadership with Prem VAS. LinkedIn, I would love you to connect with you, because this is a wonderful opportunity to be part of, to connect with the globe. And the Instagram, this is not much there. And this is the book that I've written, How to Sharpen Your Interview Skills. This is a book which is interactive. You got pages in that where you can write your notes. I've given lines and extra pages for you to write to all those questions that you have. Mastering the art, the mindset of the secret, perception matching, tips of having an edge, creating visibility, all of this that we discussed, it's more in detail in this book. It's available on Kindle. It's also in paperback currently in India, but in about a month or so, it will be available in US as a paperback. Otherwise, it's across the globe. It's available on Kindle. The technique of answering frequently asked questions and not so frequent questions. And I've also given space for you to write your own answers there. And that's why it's interactive. I've also put in a QR code where you can capture the checklist of the CV and the interview preparation that I've put there, so that you don't have to take the book along with you. Your mobile or your tab is good enough for that. And virtual interviews, we've already touched upon it, much more detail in that, and how to excel there. And this is what's more important about the book, is that I have taken views from global CEOs and CHROs, chief HR officers. And what is it that makes them click? People, what about people that delights them to select for interviews, and what puts them off? I've asked each of them three of that, and that's available there, straight from the horse's mouth. Okay, so my book got reviewed in Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. This is an institute which is among the top 50 in the world, and they have reviewed this book. This is the links for you to take a snapshot of, and you can get this. The top one is for the paperback, which is currently in India, and the other one is on the Kindle. It's across the globe. Currently, about 7 countries have got readers who have taken over a reading of this book. So I'm also a coach, and like was mentioned by Stuart in the introduction, and therefore I thought I could use this opportunity to help you do an interview session, a coaching session for you for 1 hour on Zoom. 1 hour, I can reach out anytime you want, whatever is convenient. And I would like to present my free book either as a Kindle form or a paperback, depending on the availability that is there. And please take a screenshot of this, because this is the contacts that is already there earlier. This is my WhatsApp number and my email ID. You can reach out to this. Please share your name, your email ID and mobile number, and we can connect. I can put you through an interview. Therefore, you can up and ace your chances of going through an interview if you have areas that you need to improve upon, right? So with that, over to you, Stuart. Let's go for the Q&A.
Excellent. We have quite a number of questions that have come in, and Here's one that should resonate with you. Gautam asks, from a defense background, plan to switch to my career after 21 years of service.
Okay.
I'm in aviation maintenance and safety. What are a few things that I need to concentrate on?
Right. So obviously, since you've been in the aviation, that's the industry that you need to look for. And you need to do at least much before you leave, you need to work at least, if you really ask me, you have to understand the industry and you need to read a lot about it, to go to the internet, find out what is it that's trending, what is the technology which is trending in that industry, what are the qualifications which may be far different from what you did in your in the defenses, in the armed forces. It's far different. So what are those qualifications? How do you do it? What are the institutes that offer them? What is the timelines that you need to do that? So how do you plan that? How do you work that backwards? What is the trend of the kind of jobs that you can do? So I'm not sure what was your, I'm sure if you're a flyer, then obviously flying is an option for you. But if you're a technician or if you're something on the technology part of it, would you like to excel that? Would you want to move to the R&D of that? That's something that you need to work on. Sorry, I'm going fast because I can take more questions. I hope I've answered your question.
We have several people who've asked about how to handle a gap in the resume, anything from a few months to a year or so, especially during the pandemic period. What advice do you have for them when they're asked about that?
Yeah, perfectly fine. So we all understand, most of the companies, we all understand there's a pandemic. People have lost jobs because they have to be let go, not the choice of not a very favorable place. Everybody understands that. So you don't have to really perturb about it. But what is more important is that what have you done during that gap to upskill yourself? If you have done courses, you've done certifications, you've read books, even if you're not done, if you read books, you read about the industry, what did you do to, improve yourself, the areas, the gray areas that you had, and if you're able to speak about that, that's good enough. Right? And some are really genuine reasons. You could have gone on a maternity leave. Somebody would have been seriously sick. Somebody would have been, unfortunate. God forbid, somebody would have passed away in your family. These are reasons, genuine reasons. And all of us are humans. We all understand that. But if you have a valid reason, how did you cope with it? That is what makes you important.
Excellent. Are there ways that you've talked about making that first impression in the first 9 seconds, and are there things that you can do to improve the perception if something went wrong in those first 9 seconds?
Okay, so firstly, you won't know that whether the perception has been framed in the mind of the interviewer in the first 9 seconds. You have no idea, right? But what you can do definitely is to prepare for that first impression when you open the door. Your body language, how do you stand? How do you greet them? How do you open the door? How do you close it in case of face-to-face interview? And if it is virtual, how do you greet them when they open it? And how do you present yourself there? Okay, how do you adjust yourself? What is the quality of your technology when you were doing that? And that's why it's very important. Today, if you're working for somewhere, you would buy a car, you would buy a bike, you would invest in clothes, you would invest in so many things, but you just want to use your camera, or you're not investing in technology that goes into virtual. Hi, you got to do that. Get hold of LAN instead of just doing it on Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm. And just at that moment, you froze.
Yeah, but if you do this, and the pleasantness, the way that you greet with enthusiasm in your voice and a smile on your face, that's good. Okay, now one more thing. You may be having a mask on your face today when you enter a room. Just slip down the mask, greet them with a smile and the greeting of the day, and put the mask back on for your own health. Okay, and that's how you do it.
Okay. We have a question from a LinkedIn Live viewer. How do you enhance your conversational skills in the English language?
Conversational skills in English language. If you're a regional person, how do you answer that? Is that the question? Did I get
Yeah.
it right?
If they feel less than confident in their English language skills, what advice would you have for them to improve?
See, really speaking, not just English, any language for that matter, when you speak what you have to speak, you will speak naturally. The problem comes, and this can't be corrected at that interview. It has to be much earlier. The problem comes when you are thinking in your own language and converting that into a translation into an English and then speaking it. The gap comes there. There
Mhm.
is a hesitation there. So you got to start thinking in English. The best ways that I've had in my last company as head of HR, I've taken sessions and I've told you, just listen, just look at this very quick example. Look at a baby. How does a baby learn a language? It's not going to read a book, how to learn English in 30 days. It's picking up by its senses, the eyes, the ears, it is connecting, correlating. That's how you learn the language. That's how you learn English. You got to do that much before, not by going and attending a class on how to learn English. Learn this, learn to speak yourself. Don't worry whether you're going wrong. That is where it is.
Very good. We have a couple of questions from people who are switching domains, switching into different industries. Um, and one, for example, asks about switching from the senior level jobs in the travel industry and trying to switch into other areas, but um, lack of success is lowering his confidence right now. So, what advice do you have for people who are going from one field to an entirely different field, maybe on the strength of a new skill certification or a new educational experience?
That's a wonderful question and it's very relevant today. There are industries which are not doing well and will not do well in the because of the pandemic. So therefore, you need to switch. You may be quite senior enough, right? So what you need to do is that whichever is your passion, whichever drives you, go into that, and in that you need to do a lot of homework. There's no doubt about it. Because what's happened is that at your level, you have earned a number of years of experience in that particular industry. Now, if you're going to a different industry, you need to fill that gap. But believe me, there is one thing that all of us understand, that as a leader, the leadership qualities are by and large the same whether you are from an industry A or an industry B. All that you need to do is to learn the rudiments of that industry. That's why you had Kamath, who was earlier in the banking industry. He was heading the Kamath, and he was heading that industry, and then ICICI Bank, and then he moved to Infosys, totally a software company. At that level, I'm just giving an example. At that level, those qualities of leadership are more important. Your adaptability to understand what is the next industry that you're going to go. Do a lot of homework, do studies, speak to people, speak to what is the requirements that you need to do for that role. You have to do a lot of proactive learning there. That's very important. And believe me, it can be done. It's not something that's not, and everybody understand that you're coming with that background. So they will give you that much of ropeway when you join in them, right? And the thirst and the burn in your stomach to learn, I think it will take you forward. Don't hesitate.
Excellent. We have a couple of questions about virtual interviewing and tips for that. And specifically, for example, one is if the interviewer doesn't turn on their video, should you turn yours on? Um, but what are some other points about that and other things about virtual interviews that you can advise?
Okay, so if the interviewer hasn't turned on his video, it doesn't mean that you got to turn off, because when, like, you remember I was telling you that the virtual interviews, in fact, interviews, why you do face to face is to see how do you respond, how do you. We may not know what's the reason why the interviewer has turned it off. We have no reason, and neither do we need to bother about. But you keep your unless they tell you to turn it off too. Okay, are you feeling very uncomfortable? You could ask them, should I keep my video on? Just ask them. It's plain and simple as that. But I think you should keep it on, because then your body language and the way that you answers gets captured, even though they may not have turned it on.
Okay. We're running a little over time, so I'm going to close it out with one last question. And I apologize in advance to everyone else whose questions we didn't get to. There are so many excellent questions from the audiences. And this last question is, are there any specific job portals or tips that you can give for where to find job opportunities?
Yeah, so there are a lot of jobs. The predominant ones are like in India, there is this monster.com, Naukri, and there are some ones which are not very popular, but they're very popular in the region. All you need to do is just Google that and find out what are the top sites that will give you for job portals, and they will give you a whole list of them. And depends on the region, what is working there, that will come out there. That is a better way of doing it, right? So just go ahead and do that, and that will tell you what is the percentage. Some of them have got premier services where they ask you for a certain amount of money so that they give you more features, where they profile you better than the others and all that. So really what's the success in that is can only be asked from people, but definitely that's, if you don't have any other options, that is definitely the way to go.
Okay, very good. And that concludes the Q&A portion of the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and take the sharing back from, and we'll close out with the last few announcements. If that's all right with you. And
Yeah. Stuart, I just want to thank you and Simplilearn for having given me this opportunity to connect with these people, and it's wonderful. And thank you so much. You can go ahead.
yeah, I will do that, and you'll get another chance to say goodbye in a moment. What we're going to do is a final poll, and this is to, as Prem has mentioned, lifelong learning and skills acquisition is so important. So what we're going to do is, for a moment while I launch this poll. Here we go. It's two basic questions. What are the skills that you're most interested in learning from this list? And what time frame are you looking to do that in? There's an expression that says, when would right now be the right time to do something? But that there's a lot of truth in that. So we'll give you about another 10 seconds. And 3, 2, 1. I will share the poll results. And business and project management is the most popular category for today's audience. But there's interest in most of the other skills as well. And it's heartening to see that largest number of you said right away is the right time to begin. And so with that, as I unshare the poll, I want to again thank Prem for this presentation. I have dropped his contact information into the chat window several times, so you can reach him there. Oops, sorry. But here's his LinkedIn. At LinkedIn, he's prem-voss dot 2059B810. And so if you just type in Prem Voss, you should be able to find him on the list. We would also like to remind you that Simplilearn has a free program called Skill Up, where over 600 of the skills we offer are available through video self-study, more than 1,000 hours of video content in areas from data science to project management to digital marketing, much more. You do receive completion certificates when you finish these free courses, and I have dropped that link into the chat window several times as well. So please take a look there and check that out. And check out our other more formal courses which include live instruction and hands-on projects and labs. And our next webinar is Wednesday of next week, June 23rd, in the digital marketing domain. And this webinar is a masterclass on researching keywords for the different digital marketing disciplines, SEO, pay-per-click, and content marketing. And each of those has a different requirement. So this is a way to learn the nuances of the different skills. I've dropped the link into the chat again for that webinar registration. And with that, the webinar is pretty much over. We want to thank everybody here. Prem, we want to thank you, and we want to thank our audiences, both in our live webinar WebEx and our live streams on YouTube and LinkedIn. We invite you to connect with Simplilearn at our social media channels at Simplilearn on Facebook, Twitter, and on LinkedIn. And we look forward to seeing you at future Simplilearn webinars. Again, Prem.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Stuart, especially for you.
Okay, and you're welcome. And again, that concludes the webinar. So at this point, we invite you to log off of LinkedIn. We will send you a recording link via email tomorrow to a recording of this webinar. We cannot share a PowerPoint from Prem because it is proprietary to him, but you will get a link to the YouTube recording of this webinar. And for those of you who have made it through at least 30 minutes of today's session, we'll be emailing out proof of attendance certificates over the weekend. So please expect to see those on or before Monday. And with that, we have concluded the webinar. Thank you.